Hey guys, today I'm going to share with you my top 3 strong list builds for Space Wolves, which I think can work really well in the current meta in a competitive scenario. I'm not saying that these are absolutely the best and there is nothing to be improved there. There certainly is something to be improved after some play testing, but I think these 3 are a good foundation that you can use and build on top of to see what you think would work the best. So without further ado, let's dive right in. And firstly, I'm going to talk about the Dread Wall, which is basically a fancy way to say a list that maximizes the use of Dreadnoughts. Using our new Arcs of Omen detachment, we'll see what we can build to maximize the potential of these wonderful platforms. I've said in multiple videos of mine that I believe that Dreadnoughts are one of the best models that you can get your hands on in the current Space Marine book, and Space Wolves chapter is not an exception. So thanks to the new Arcs of Omen detachment, we can basically get our hands comfortably on 8 Dreadnoughts. You can obviously go for more, but I think trying to add more Dreadnoughts will not be beneficial. You'll probably be just taken away from the overall power of the roster at hand. So what do we have here? Let's quickly read through that. Well, quickly I say, it usually will take about 25 hours to read. So in any case, HQs. Bjorn the Fell-Handed is the first, and for a good reason. I've already said it multiple times in my videos that he's one of the best models we have access to in the Space Wolves chapter. One of the biggest reasons why I don't think playing Space Wolves successors is a good idea is because you don't have access to him and Nyal, which is the second guy here. So why do we need him? He's basically our best babysitter for our Dreadnoughts. Obviously, he's more important for the Redemptors because Murderfang and Wolfenreds are not core, so we don't really care about that stuff with them. However, for the Redemptors and anything else for that matter, like Thundercav, he will be granting the reroll once to hit, as any captain should. We obviously have Wolf Lord and Thunderwolf as well, but that's just an additional way to get those rerolls, and probably where you need them more, because Thunderwolf Lord will be mostly on the front lines and the Redemptors are slower than that. So that's why he is good. Obviously, he's a character Dreadnought. He's very protected. He's very good in combat unless you're fighting against hordes, where he unfortunately doesn't have like a sweep mode, so his attacks are not enough to clear efficiently something like a unit of Poxwalkers, for example. But for all other things, he's wonderful, survivable, provides twin last cannon or multi-melted fire, whatever you want. It doesn't cost you anything. Again, fights very well, has the heroic interventions, great heroic interventions as any Space Wolves character. So a very, very important part of any list. And as you will see, the HQ part of the list will not be changing much, because these 4 characters, especially the first 3, are the ones that I think are just so valuable that probably no matter what you're going for with your Space Wolves, you need these 3 in each of your lists. The 4th one can be exchanged in a case that we will discover later. So next is Nyal Stormcaller. He's the best librarian money can buy, as I've already said in the Space Wolves analysis for the Space Wolves chapter. He's very good. He has +1 to cast. He has reroll, denies. He knows 3 powers, which is very important because we will give him the Murderous Hurricane, which is the most important probably out of them all. The Fight Last power, which allows us to have Fight Last both with the Armor of Rust Relic, which we also have here, and with the Psychic power, which gives us more range, and it does not require us to be within engagement range or however close we need that for Armor of Rust. So we can do that from a distance, which is again important. So yeah, that's his first Psychic power. The second one is the Instinct Awoken. That's just a way to buff up our melee, get those exploding 5s to hit when you are in melee in the Assault Doctrine. very important, not critical, but good to have and probably the best you can go for. You can also go for the -1 to hit power, like a debuff for your opponent unit, also a good one, but I would probably gravitate more towards the Instincts Awoken as I chose here. And the fifth one is Stormcaller, another very important one, probably the one that I would be using along with the Murderous Hurricane and Instincts Awoken, depending on which turn and what's happening on the board, because it gives light cover to our Dreadnoughts, and as we no longer have Armor of Contempt, that's the only way to have any decent, well, half-decent save against heavy anti-tank firepower for them. Obviously, Wolf and Dreadnoughts don't have that problem because they have shields, same goes for Thundercav, and our characters are mostly protected, but the Redemptors are a weak spot, so we need to give them at least some protection from the anti-tank firepower. So that is Niall. He's very good. He will be in all three lists just because I don't see any reason why you would take anything else, and you need psychic powers with Space Wolves just because that manipulation of the fight sequence is so powerful that if you are not choosing not to have that in your Space Wolves army, which is predominantly fighting combat army, you're basically shooting yourself in the knee. Next is Primaris Chaplain on Bike. Another important model, very good. It's a shame that Space Wolves don't have their own litanies. That would be very cool. But the ones that we have in the main book are also great. And he is the Master of Sanctity because investing those extra, I think it's 20 points now, to make him a Master of Sanctity is always important because we need that second litany and we need the Wise Orator Wallow trait. Wise Orator Wallow trait, for those who don't know, is the +1 to your roll for the litany. So usually you roll and on the 3+ it goes off, and 1 to 2 it fails. It's unacceptable. It's just too bad and you cannot rely on that. I cannot tell you how many times I've rolled a 2 on my litany, like 2 2s even in a single command phase. So you need that trait always. Just never take a chaplain if you're not ready to invest that extra command point and extra points to get access to that trait. Relic for him is the Armor of Russ. It gives the bearer a 4+ invulnerable save, which is not important in this case because he already has his Rosarius. However, he gets 2+ armor save, which can be useful in some cases, and the most important part is that you can select a unit within an engagement range of him, and that unit fights last. That's very important because now we have 2 ways to give fight last debuffs in this particular roster, which is great. It means that unless your opponent has army-wide fight firsts and something like that, you almost always will have control over how the fight phase goes, and that's precisely what you want with Space Wolves. For his litanies, as you can see, I've selected Exhortation of Rage and Canticle of Hate. These are the 2 basic ones. Exhortation is just +1 to wound and melee. That's very good on almost anything. I would probably stick that just onto your Thunderwolf Cavalry when they charge. And also the Canticle of Hate, which is extremely important. It gives you the +2 to charges and +3 to violence and consolidations. The latter part is maybe not that useful, not always. However, the +2 to charges is just wonderful in order to reach targets that are, well, quite far away, especially for your lumbering Dreadnoughts. That's important. Next character is the Wolf Lord on Thunderwolf. I've kitted him out to be as resilient as possible because I think characters like him can be very useful in certain situations, just maybe with that with those 2 squads of Thunderwolf Cavalry we have in the fast attack slot, in order to provide some like bulwark in that area and make life harder for the opponent, trying to finish off that character, even though that character actually is not that important to us, to our game plan. Most of the power is elsewhere, but him being annoying and in your face makes players want to go after him, and that's precisely what we want because we gave him the Resolve of the Bear, which is 6-up shrug and no rerolls to wound or damage against him, and also it's a great saga. If he suffers any wounds, it's an aura of 6+ shrug also great, especially for Thunderwolf Cavalry within 6 of this guy. And the Belt of the Beowulf is a wonderful defensive relic. It's basically -1 to wound and -1 to hit in combat, which is great. Having -1 to wound on something that already is toughness 5 is strong, as we know by the Chaos Space Marine Terminator blob with the Rune of Damnation. And -1 to hit is great as well, because it's a quite rare thing for combat. So usually in combat we are used to hitting as well as the unit that is doing the hitting can. However, when a -1 is introduced, that always throws off the stats. And just to make him just a little bit more punchy and reliable in terms of his charges, because just a reminder, he has the Swift Hunter's ability as he's on the Thunderwolf, so he can advance and charge, and he can also pile in 4 inches instead of 3. Pile in and consolidate, that is. So the Imperium Sword Warlord trait, the second Warlord trait we gave him, allows him to reroll charges, which is great, as he can move 10, advance however much he rolls on the dice, and then charge and have that reroll to have an extra chance, a free chance to reach the target. That makes him more annoying, and that is his main goal, being annoying. And also Imperium Sword gives him +1 strength. Maybe not that important. However, there are some targets which are toughness 8, toughness 9, so on the Thunderhammer being strength 9 can be useful. And the last part is that it gives him +1 attack. Just a good +1 attack. That's always great to have on a fighty character. In the troops, we have 2 quite simple choices. So first is the Assault Intercessor Squad, the cheapest option we have, and very efficient, especially now with the Sergeant being pimped up by the Plasma Pistol and the Thunderhammer for free. Previously, you used to pay 20 points, I think, for the Thunderhammer, so it's a very, very good discount now. And the 5-man Infiltrator Squad, that's just there to give us a bit more flexibility, maneuverability. There are sometimes cases when there is like a diagonal deployment and a ruin somewhere a bit further from your deployment zone. You cannot really get there straight up, but you could if you had the concealed positions rule on someone. So that's why these guys are there. You can probably also change that to something else, maybe like a cheaper option, and get a Cyber Wolf in addition to that in the fast attacker slot. So as I already said, you can mix and match, play with these units and see what you want to add here. That's just a ballpark option for you. But yes, I do like the Infiltrator Squad now. It's a good option, and the free Helix Gauntlet also is helpful for their survivability. In the elites, we have the Murderfang because we get access to that free character elite slot now, so that's why we have 6 elites here. We obviously chose the compulsory elite slot for our Arcs of Omen detachment to get the 6 elites, but the 7th one is unlocked by Murderfang being a character. Murderfang is good. He is not maybe absolutely efficient, but we want to go max dreadnoughts, and he is efficient enough to get into this list, in my opinion, if you use him properly. And probably I would be hiding him behind the wall of Wolfen dreadnoughts, because until they are alive, he is basically alive. And be very careful with his pile-ins and consolidations to make sure that he's always the furthest from main shooting or psychic or whatever of the opponent, because otherwise if you lose him too early, he will not make his points back, provided he's not very expensive now. 140 points is not something crazy for a Dreadnought character, but still we don't want to lose him early. Next are 3 Redemptor Dreadnoughts. Nothing special about them, they're just wonderful models with all the stuff you can have on them, plasmas. I've already talked probably hours already about Redemptors. Nothing to say about them now, just wonderful models. Everything is great about them. They do cost a lot, but they do a lot of work, and they are the main firepower source in this list. And with Bjorn's help, Bjorn wants to hit and potentially even wants to wound. They are very, very efficient. And now you get 3 Icarus pods on them, which is also helpful. And 3 Wolfen Dreadnoughts, they are here to be the distraction unit mostly and do some damage as well with those Fenrisian axes, which are great because you also have that sweep profile, so they don't have the Bjorn problem of being afraid of walking into a horde of boxwalkers and not being able to walk out of it. So they can actually deal with that stuff quite well. And obviously D3 plus 3 damage on the Fenrisian axe main strike is also good. And having 4+ invulnerable save is just game changing for them, because without that I would not even be considering them. With the 4+ invulnerable save, they are annoying to deal with. -1 damage, 4+ invulnerable save, that's enough to create problems, so to speak. Especially if you use the Njal to get that aura of -1 to hit from the stratagem that Space Wolves have access to. That will also bump up their survivability whilst they're crossing that dangerous part of the board in the middle or in the beginning of the game. And what I also like about Wolfen Dreadnought is that they move 8 and have reroll on charges, so you can move and advance them in the first turn, and it's likely that after that, with another 8 inches of movement and a rerollable charge, you will be getting into combat with them, especially if your opponent doesn't deploy perfectly. And in the fast attack slot, we have 2 units of 3 Thunderwolf Cavalry. They are quite cheap now, only 35 points for the guys with Power Fists and Storm Shields, because we don't pay for them anymore. And only Thunderhammer costs extra 10 points, which we gave to the pack leaders. You can easily swap that out if you need extra 20 points. That's not mandatory. They are good with the Power Fists. Obviously, they're not like knight-killing unit, nothing even close, but they will do some damage if you charge them into something, and they're mostly there just for board control and to be more aggressive in the early game. So that is the Dread Wall in essence. So there are obviously, as we already discussed, things that you can change here, but I think that's quite a balanced list, and I do like it, and I would love to try it when I have a chance. I'm not sure, I don't have all the models available, but most of them probably. So we may try that sometimes in the future in the battle reports. And now we're moving on to the second list. So for the second list, I had quite a different idea. So I didn't want to have slow lumbering wall of dreadnoughts, even though Wolfen Dreadnoughts are not that slow, but they're still quite slow. I wanted to have something faster, something that can reach the opponent as quickly as possible. I must warn you that Space Wolves will never be as fast as, say, White Scars, and you are unlikely to have first turn charges. So however fast you want to go, you will still be limited by the fact that you don't have access to advance and charge, even with the Hunter Wallow trait, because as I discussed previously, it's worded in such a way that it's only activated at the end of the phase, and by the end of the phase all the charges are already done. So even if you have charged with that Wallow trait and activated the saga after a successful charge, the effects are only applied at the end of the phase, so you cannot really use it that well. And Thunderwolf Cavalry, even though they have advance and charge, their movement 10 is not likely to get you close enough for a reliable charge in first turn unless your opponent makes a mistake, but you at least have a better chance here compared to, say, for example, the previous list. And the first 3 HQs are absolutely the same: Bjorn, Njal, and Primaris Chaplain on bike. Everything stays the same with them. Only one thing has changed. We gave Primaris Chaplain Hunter Wallow trait, which I've just discussed with you. It's a great one. It gives incredible mobility to the Chaplain himself, allowing him to move 20 inches and then charge, or fall back and charge, and also gives him, I think, +1 to charges and advances. So he's very, very zippy. Yes, he's not that fighty because he doesn't have a relic like the Benediction of Fury, because we actually need that armor of us on him much more than we need extra melee from him. But still, he can do some damage, and most importantly, he can bring that fight last wherever you need it, however far that place is. And the fourth HQ is the Wolf Lord and Thunderwolf, and this one is slightly changed from the previous iteration because we did not give him the relic Pelt of the Beowulf. Instead, I gave him the Wolfenstone, which is the aura of reroll charges, very important for the Thunderwolf Cavalry because we want them to have that constant ability to reroll charges for free without using any command points. And also, once per game, you can activate the relic and get extra attacks. Basically, it allows you to have you exploding 6s on 6s and 5s once per game within 6 inches of the bearer. That can be very helpful, especially in a clutch moment in a turn where you actually need all of your stuff to go your way. That's probably where I would use that relic. In the troops compartment, we have 5-man heavy intercessor squad. Why, you could ask me? Well, basically we had some points left over, and I thought that as we are building something that is going to run away from the deployment zone quicker, we might want to have something beefier inside the deployment zone just to keep the home objective safer. So 5-man heavy intercessor squad was a logical choice, especially considering the fact that they are now much cheaper than they were before, which is what I like. And also we get a free executor heavy bolter, 5 strength 5 AP 2 damage 3 2 shots with like 42 I think inches of range. A good weapon to use against something far away from your unit, which is basically there just to protect your home objective. And the second 5-man Incursor squad with a Haywire Mine for free is there for the same reason that the Infiltrator squad was in the previous list, just to give you that extra flexibility to put something on an objective which is not in your deployment zone, but is far enough from your opponent to be safe from charges early in the game. Next, in the elite slot, we have the same 3 Redemptor Dreadnoughts. Everything is the same with them, not going to repeat why they're great. And the fourth unit is a 5-man Wolfguard unit with Jump Axe, Lightning Claws, and Storm Shields. These 5-man units are great. If I could, I would probably start any Space Wolves list with just 6 units of 5 of these, but we cannot build it like that. We can only go 3 10-man squads and combat squad them, which can be a good idea. I'm not sure that Wolfguard have combat squad abilities. I think they don't have that. So in any case, we have a 5-man squad here. It's just to get us extra mobility as we're going for mobility in this list. And they are quite fast. They are reliable, reasonably durable with their 4-up invulnerable save and 2-up save. And mostly there to provide support. Don't put them just in front of your force, just run them onto the objective and think that they will withstand anything. They will not. And don't charge them into something which is obviously not a great matchup for them. But they will do a lot for you if you use them properly and charge them into, say, troops unit, maybe a tank on 3 or 4 wounds left, something like that. And the biggest chunk of the army is in the fast attack slot, as you've already read. The Thunderwolf Cavalry units, 3 of them, each has 5 models. The regular guys just have Storm Shields and Power Fists, and the Thunderwolf Cavalry Pack Leader has the Storm Shield and the Thunder Hammer. I really like the Power Fists now as they are free, because before that I would probably either go for the Thunder Hammer because the price difference wasn't that big, or just stick with the cheaper option of a Lightning Claw. However, now when they are free, I do believe that the Power Fist is great, especially with Space Wolves where the -1 to hit is more or less negated. So Thunderwolf Cavalry are fast enough, but I urge you to protect them in the first turn, because they can be killed if they are focus fired, and we don't want our opponent to have that ability, so probably hide them in the first turn. That would mean that you will not reach the intended target as fast, because you will have to move around the building as they are cavalry and cannot move through the ruins. but that is worth it if you want to keep them alive. Just make sure that after you move them out, they're not standing in plain sight again. Just hide them behind next ruin and then charge your opponent. That is the best way to use them. And in the second turn, you will at least have that -1 to hit from Niall, potentially. Or at least the Stormcaller for +1 to the saving throw. So that was the second list. And in the third one, I had an idea of building something infantry heavy. And I think this is probably the coolest one I have for you. So the name is the Horde, which I think sounds cool. And the HQs, in the HQs we have almost the same deal. However, we have a new character here. So Niall, Bjorn, the same story. Primaris Chaplain, I think the exact same thing. Yes, Hunter, yeah. So the same idea for him as well. However, we have now Ragnar Blackmane. So as I've discussed in the video, a review of all the Space Wolf characters, which I recommend to watch if you're looking to expand your collection and want to know which characters to go for. Ragnar is quite good. He provides a bunch of auras for us, so +3 to consolidations. That's the first one. Also reroll charges for free, so that's why we don't need that relic Wolf and Stone in this case. And also the Captain's Aura reroll ones to hit, which is always great. And as the Bjorn will probably stay with the Redemptors, that's the guy that you will be advancing along your Horde to provide them with plus reroll ones. So they will be hitting on 2s, reroll ones after charging, which is quite nasty for just regular troops. And talking about troops, we have 6 units of 5 Assault Intercessors here. And each sergeant has a Thunderhammer and a Plasma Pistol. Firstly, that's just capture that in your head. That looks epic. And if I saw a list like that on a tournament or anywhere else, my applause would be there in a moment, because that just looks awesome and wonderful. But in any case, I think that 5-man Assault Intercessor squad are quite good now, as they cost only 85 points. They will be providing you extra command points if you reach your opponent's deployment zone for Linebreaker, and Linebreaker is quite good now. And you can do that with, for example, your 5-man Wolfguard squad, the first squad, and if one of your 5-man Assault Intercessors reaches the deployment zone, you get an extra command point as well. That's a nice bonus. And if you kill a character for Assassinate, you also get an extra command point. So a lot of bonuses for you now to have the troops. And obviously they have OPSEC, so a lot more board control, objective control. And they're good in combat, as the Sergeant has the Thunderhammer to deal with the heavier stuff. And with +1 to hit, that's quite good. With the support of characters as well. And the 5-man intercessors, the 4-man intercessors with the chainswords will do some damage. Obviously, before you reach the Assault Doctrine, that will be limited. However, with the lack of Armor of Contempt now, the -1 AP on the chainswords is no longer useless. So unless you are playing against Votan, which is, well, tough luck, you will be getting some efficiency back from that AP1 on the chainswords. And you could probably even do something like combining these 6-man units into bigger units of 10 if you really wanted to. I just like the fact that we're getting as much efficiency as possible from the sergeants. However, that would make it much better in terms of using the Honor of the Chapter strat, which is 2 command points, fight again with a unit of Assault Intercessors. But, well, that depends on how you want to play it. I do enjoy MSU style more, especially with the free war gear on the Sergeant. So that is the main part. And in the elites, we have the usual suspects, 3 Redemptor Dreadnoughts, 2 5-man Wolfguard squads just for some mobility, and a 3-man Blade Guard squad with a Plasma Pistol on the Sergeant. That's a utility choice, more or less. They can protect your home objective, help you with that, or they can be an extra charging unit. Anything you want. They are very efficient for 105 points and just a good unit. And I decided to have them here instead of everything else because I've already said I like Blade Guard. So there is a lot of potential synergy here with Ragnar, with reroll charges, with extra consolidations. You will just have so much stuff in the grill of your opponent, and that stuff will hopefully have 2+ save with Stormcaller from Njal, and you can spread out the squads like Spiderweb and have just a couple of guys near the Njal so that they can get that +2 to their saving throw. Obviously, some of them will die, but that will require some power, and your Redemptors in the meanwhile will probably be safe. Or if they concentrate on your Redemptors, there is a horde of Assault Intercessors, angry Marines running at them. So these are my top 3 lists. Let me know in the comment section below what you like about them, what you don't like about them. Maybe you've spotted something that is inefficient, or you have some ideas that you would like to share with me and the audience. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.